Without further ado, we're going to go to Matt Harber for our demonstration. So this is Matt's demo. Matt's going to turn and make his piece in accordance to how he wants to turn, how he wants to turn it, and make the piece look. Anyone has any questions or comments about what he's doing, please hold them until the end of the demo, because when you're asking questions to the demonstrator, it kind of changes their line of thought or their direction that they're heading and breaks their concentration on what they're doing. And we don't want to do that while the demonstrator is putting on a nice little demo for us. So without further ado, I am going to mute everybody. And then Matt, just unmute yourself. So here we go. Unmute yourself, Matt.
Yeah, it wouldn't switch over real quick. Yep. Okay. So I'm Matt Harber. Welcome to my shop. Tonight I'm demonstrating the spiral ribbon finials. There's my contact information if anybody has any questions. Dave already has this document. I emailed it to him earlier this afternoon. So let me switch to this and show you some of the things that I've made so far. So this one is on the cover of that document, and it's the first one I tried. And all of my tenons are standardized to 1/4 of an inch. I use my handy dandy 1/4 inch gauge to find that. This is cherry. As a first one, I'm happy with this. I like the way this one turned out. There is some carving. There's a couple things that I will point out about this. This corner here is a little too sharp. This corner here is a little too sharp. And this shoulder up here is a little too square. And you'll see what I mean when we get into this. To give you an example of what looks better, this is a different one. This transition is a lot cleaner, and so is this transition here. And this transition here is also smoother. It's not so square. So when you play with this, you will see this happen. And your first ones are going to be a little weird too when you figure it out. So tonight, the wood I'm going to use is box elder, mainly because I've got a lot of it. I will point out a few things about box elder. Like, I have a lot of this sitting around. So I chunked up some branches and tried to make one of these out of a branch. And I don't know if you all can see this, but the pith, when I tried to make the finial too small, the pith damaged my finial. So don't do that. So, and it happened a couple times. So, these are recoverable, but it's problematic. So the first thing I do is I cut up my blanks and I put a tenon on them, and they don't have to be very big. And then I chuck it up, which is what I've done with this piece. Any questions so far?
Nothing in chat.
All right. Well, I'm going to start turning. One of the first things I'm going to do is I'm going to make this a little more round, and the bottom of this is not quite square. So I'm going to start to clean that up too. Okay.
Sounds good.
Now I don't want to go all the way down because I'm going to have to drill this and it's going to get thin. And I want to make sure that I have enough wood here to drill successfully. So all I've done is make this round. Let me move some things out of the way here. That's askew. And I'm going to make a little dimple for the drill to start with my skew head. Okay, so the drill I'm going to use on this is a 1/2-inch drill, and I'm going to load it in my, it's loaded already in my Jacobs chuck because I over prepare. So, and it's marked for 3 inches. Okay. And people have asked me, why not use a Forstner bit? Well, my Forstner bits don't go this deep. They don't go 3 inches deep. So you could get an extension, you could get crazy with it. The cuts are almost the same. This works pretty good. Make sure you regularly clear your chips. Now, I know that this is marked at 3 inches. However, it always pays to measure exactly. So this is something that I discovered very quickly on trying these, is that it might, you might think that the measurement is where it's supposed to be, but it ain't necessarily always so. So I can take a ruler here and say, there's my 3 inches. And look where that shows up. Curious, eh? Can you see the difference? About an 1/8 of an inch. So that's the bottom of my hole as measured with the pen. So the actual bottom of my, you know what, I'm going to put a 60-degree cone in, live center, and hold it with that. And I'm not putting a lot of pressure in here because otherwise, it could crack things. So what that means is that I want the bottom, this bit here, okay, this bit here, I want this to be with enough meat between the actual bottom of my inside hole that I don't have to worry about running into anything. Make sense?
Perfectly.
So I'm going to give myself a very generous amount of space here. And then I'm just going to make things a lot flatter, a lot rounder, and a lot flatter. So one of the things to keep in mind here is the thinner you make this tube, the less work of carving it out the spiral bit is. And you do have to carve the spiral bit out. Now, I did this demo for my club last month. Maybe it was a month, or maybe it was 2 months ago. And this box elder was freshly cut at the time and very wet. And I had a lot of fun spraying shavings in the guys in the front row. And I was asked if it was smarter to use wet wood or dry wood. And the short answer is this works better with dry wood. I just used the wet wood because that's what I had laying around. But if you're using dry wood, it's easier to carve and it's easier to sand. It doesn't gum up your sandpaper and so on. Now, I noticed myself when I was making these is I have a tendency to make this end larger than this end. What that means is when I get down to carving, it starts off pretty reasonable up the top, but then when you get down to the bottom here, it's a lot thicker. Maybe your carving tool doesn't go all the way through. So I've been working to make my tubes straight across. Any questions about anything I'm doing now? These are all shearing cuts, as you can tell from the shavings. And you could do this with a skew too. All right, let's mark this deeper here where my bottom of my thing is here. This is a skew I'm using with this here. Any questions? Am I still online?
You're still online. You're still there, man.
It's very, very quiet. I'd rather have you all talking to me, frankly.
Well, if you want folks to holler stuff at you, then
yeah, where's my heckling section? Come on, guys.
No, it's looking good, man.
Thank you, Bob. All right. Now, on some levels, these look a lot better if they follow the rules for finials. The general rules for finials, the way that Cindy Droz does them. They look pretty good. If they're spiraled here, get some really great shavings. A lot of fun. So one of the tools I use is a detail gouge. This is basically a small spindle gouge that's had the grind steepened and the shoulders swept back on it. And I use that for doing things like small details on finials, because it lets me get into tight corners and make features like beads and that kind of stuff. And you guys have seen me use this before.
So is that sharpened at 30 degrees?
It looks like it's about 45 degrees. I honestly don't know what the angle is. I do know that my goal angle on my deep fluted bowl gouge is 55 degrees, but that's about. And I know that on my parting tool, the slant on the tip of my small parting tool is 15 degrees because everybody asked, so I measured it. But basically, I just worked that one until I got the grind I wanted. I did a couple different grinds to test it. I'll show you that when I get to it, because I use it to undercut stuff. But this lets me very, very, very gently roll around corners and make very interesting details and so on. So, and I'm taking very light cuts, clearly.
So Matt, what wall thickness are you aiming for?
Well, I mean, the wall thickness, I don't honestly know what the wall thickness is here. It's probably a 1/16 of an inch, and I'm just sort of looking at it from the side. Here, let me switch on you here. So I don't know if you can actually see that. Oh, this is in the way.
Yeah, I can't really see.
Oh, the wrong direction. No, you can't see. Okay, so let me grab one I did this afternoon in practice. Okay.
Yep.
So, and this one is already thinner than that, I think. So, because this one I tried to use a Forstner bit on to see what happened. and it's not quite all the way in. It didn't go all the way in.
Right.
All right, so because I can, and it's my demo, I'm going to sand really quick.
Go ahead. Makes it a lot easier to do it now.
Yeah, I may carve this on the lathe tonight too. Before I take it off the lathe, I've never done that. I've always done it by hand in my lap. So it's just easier, for you guys to see it, and I don't have to change cameras around. So I'm set up to do that. So we're going to try that tonight just to see how that works.
So the ones that you've made so far, Matt, are they all basically the same size, or have you made bigger ones also?
I have been making them all the same size. Let me show you. I just moved them all off here. So they're all I'm using them all. So they're pretty much all the same size. And I got one here I've dyed. So, and I got one here, then instead of spiral cutting it, I just sort of freehanded it. So there's no reason why you got to use tape and get crazy with it. This is interesting too. So
yeah, it looks good.
Yeah, it's and I got my inspiration from one of my own club members who made these and made a video some 10 years ago or something. His name is Phil Stevens, and his video is on YouTube somewhere. And when we get to the carving bit, he did his carving on his scroll saw. I'm going to use Dremel tools because not everybody has a scroll saw or is good at it. But we'll get to that.
Yeah, sounds good.
All right, good enough for government work. So the way that I am now doing these, this is the design that I've been doing. I've been putting a little bead in here, and then a feature like this, and then the bottom of the finial. Now, the bottom of the finial, the base, is undercut because almost always we put these things on rounded tops and so on. So you want to undercut it a little bit because you want it to sit flush. And let me show what I mean by that. So this is the one that I did here, and you can see that it's slightly rounded.
Right.
So that's why I undercut the finials, okay? All right. That's nice. I like that. So let's make our base, I don't know, about like that. I'm back to my detail gouge to create a little thing under here like that. Again, this is, just as the way I've sort of evolved making them. You don't have to make them this way. There's lots of ways to make these things. Okay. This is my little parting tool here. It has the angle on the top is not straight. It's 15 degrees. And I use this to undercut things. It just lets me get underneath things easier. Okay, now, because I said we were going to try and carve one of these on the lathe tonight, let's do that now. Okay, any questions so far on what I've done?
No, nothing in chat, leastways.
That's interesting. Wonder what that is.
Can't see it.
Well, there's a little black mark in here.
Yeah, it's a knot.
You
Yeah,
always,
it almost looks like dye or something.
A nail.
Oh, maybe.
Or
Well, the beauty
piece of
the beauty
buckshot.
of this, and I've got a crack here. The beauty of this is I can decide where to make what parts to cut out. So those parts are getting cut out.
Absolutely.
yeah, right.
All right, so this is 3/4 inch smashing tape. It's just blue painter's tape. It's 3/4 inch. So I got some parts here. So I don't know. Let's go across like this. There's a crack there, so let's cut that out too, and let's just that'll work like that. Bring it down here like that. Okay, now one of the things that I have neglected to so I'm just going to pull my tailstock off here. Wow, that stuff broke. That just broke. Interesting. Okay. All right. So I'm going to get my little pen out, my little pencil out here, and I'm going to measure where this is, where the bottom is. And the reason why I'm doing this is several reasons. One, but the primary reason is you don't want to come in below. You don't want to carve below where your bottom is. You want to be above that. Okay, so that's my line. So I'm gonna draw it across here like that. Now I'm gonna pencil in a curve here for this transition here, and I'm gonna pencil in a curve here for the transition here. Okay, and this is my cut line. All right. Questions on that? Why I did what I did? Okay.
No.
All right. I'm going to try and simplify this as much as possible. And you're welcome to use whatever tools you like. The original video I saw from Phil Stevens, he used a scroll saw. I tried using a bandsaw. I tried using a number of the different cutoff saws and Dremel saws. The things that were the tool that worked best for me was actually this Dremel carbide. So I don't know if you guys can see that, but it's a sawtooth carbide.
Yes, you can see it.
Okay. And I have saber tooth burrs, and these are sanding mandrels. This is the small one, and the larger one.
Right.
Comes standard with all the Dremels, right? Okay. Questions on that?
No.
All right. So I am going to use my microcarver, but this works for Dremel. So, you could use a Dremel if that's what you had handy. Glasses out here so I can see what I'm doing. I got this at the wrong angle. All right. Note to self. Can you guys see what I'm doing here? I'm going to take this off. Can you see what I'm doing here? Yes, you can.
Yes.
Okay. So I'm cutting outside the tape. This is actually pretty easy to do on the lathe. I can roll it while I'm cutting.
And that thickness is about a 1/16 of an inch then?
Yeah. You know what,
Okay.
Dane, because you want to know, I'll measure it for you.
Well, it's not necessarily that I want to know. There was a question earlier about the wall thickness.
Okay.
And so I'm just me, I got to get the question covered.
I hear you. All right.
I'd
Let's
say
find
it's
out.
close to 2 to 3 mil.
Yeah. That's 2 mil.
Right on.
Yep, that's exactly 2 mil. Oh, that's a hole. That's not a die mark. That's a hole. Okay, interesting. Problem inside the wood. So, and I'm not trying to take too much. I'm just trying to take a little bit with each pass. This tool will burn if you try to take too much wood. I don't know if I'm blocking this. Can you guys see what I'm doing?
Yeah, we can see.
All right. But with this bit, this goes very quickly, as you can see. I cut through this pretty quickly with a minimum of fuss. Okay. And it's a little ragged. That's why you've got sanding mandrels. And you're going to do some cleanup with the sanding mandrels anyway to clean up your edges and to fix your, this is going to be square here, and you're going to want to round that off just because it looks better.
A severe thunderstorm watch has been issued for your location.
Who's that? Is that
I
you,
don't know.
Dane?
No, it wasn't me.
Okay, so yeah, so I'm through. So the only real issues now are getting to the bottom here. Now I tried when I was doing a prep for another demo, I tried a lot of different tools. I tried all the Dremel cut-off saws. I've got a diamond one. I've got the standard ones, and so on. Okay, they don't work as well. They're too big. You can't go around the corners you need to. So this works the best so far that I've found. So I'm sorry, guys. This is like watching paint dry. So
Oh,
I'm
no,
a little
it's
thicker
nothing wrong with
than
it at all. Way better than watching sanding.
Yeah.
So, Matt, we have a question on where do you get your bits from?
These are standard Dremel bits. Okay. This is a standard Dremel. I don't know what they call this, but this came, with my first set that I got like 100 years ago. All right. So my thing is that my bit is off, and you can see how rough things are. Okay. So let me pull the tape off. All right. So I've got a spiral finial and it needs cleaning up, right? So
Yep.
I'm going to switch to sanding mandrel here. I can figure out what it did with them. So let's switch to the big one here. And this is a standard Dremel sanding mandrel. Every Dremel comes with these, right? So I'm going to turn my speed down. Now, one of the things you'll notice is that this is square here. Okay, you see how square that is?
Yes.
I much prefer them to be rounded. I much prefer this to be rounded. So there's some cleanup that has to be done here. Now, there's no reason why you have to do that. but you know, for my money, I think it's more appealing to me.
Matt, you're saying rounded. Do you mean more of an angle?
Yeah. So let me draw it out.
Yeah.
Okay. So what this edge here is square. Okay. I want this to transition smoothly like this. Okay.
Start with a point.
Yeah. So, and you can see how flimsy that is. It's moving while I'm drawing this. So when you're carving or cutting these things, be sure to support it what you're doing too. So I'll switch back to the cutter, as long as I make sure not to throw it into the shavings. And I'm going to cut that corner off. Okay. Nope, not like that. Wrong button.
Wrong button.
So you want to make sure that you support this so it doesn't go awry on you. And then I'll come back with the sander and clean it up. So I'm trying to leave myself a little extra room here. My head isn't in the way, is it?
No, you're fine.
All right. And be gentle. Don't get all crazy with this. Excuse me. So there's, you don't have to be, you don't have to go be aggressive. Just.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that, Matt, or showing that, Matt. It's that cleared a lot of things up for me.
Yep. You're very welcome. So, and then you gotta smooth it out and get the turner's elbow out of the way. So, and then, I'll go in the middle and I'll clean up because this is kind of messy here from the drill. But at any rate, that's the general gist of it.
This is a great idea.
So, and these are wonderful because they'll go on anything. I mean, a vase, box lid. I mean, you saw what I did with it, right?
You could even turn eternal flames the inside diameter of the spiral and set in the top.
Yep. So
there's all kinds of stuff you can do with that.
Yep. So, but there's a lot of sanding, and especially you get out here on the edge, you got to support it. I mean, you guys can see it's moving around.
Right.
So, but I mean, you got to clean it up. And
so, Matt, there was a question in the chat on how you would approach that using scroll saw to cut it out.
Well, I would encourage you to find Bill Stevens' video. He shows how it does it. Basically, what he did is he made a small sled, okay, and he was cutting it off center. So he made a sled. He just basically laid out eighth inch ply or something with a very thin piece of wood and made two small 45-degree triangles to hold it. And then when he was cutting, he wasn't cutting right in the middle. He was cutting off to the side. So let me show you what I mean by that. Let me get because I've got some V grooves I've made for my bandsaw. So let's say you take something like this, okay? This is basically a V groove for cutting round things on the bandsaw with, right? So he wasn't cutting right square in the middle. He was making his cuts out here. So he was actually, if this is the center, he's cutting out here. So his blade is not running into the bottom where he's cutting. You follow what I'm saying? He's not running into the bottom part of the finial. All right, so I'm gonna put this bit all away here and take it off the lathe, so you can see how I do that. Any other questions?
Nothing in chat.
All right. Is everybody falling asleep? What's the deal?
No, we're really impressed.
Okay.
I've got a big concern, huge concern. When you
Okay.
take the tape off, does the wood ever scream ouch?
Well, yeah. No, it's painter tape, man. The wood is
Very good.
perfectly happy. The wood is perfectly happy with it. I did I nicked myself here yesterday, right across my knuckle here. It was something stupid. I was loosening the bit in the Jacobs chuck, and my tool rest was right here, and it slipped.
Yep.
and I hit my knuckle on it, and it was like,
I can imagine myself doing that.
yeah, it's just, you kick yourself.
Matt.
You shouldn't have done it, but you're hurrying or whatever. And
So did you say an adjective or an adverb?
I think
Put him
what
in
I
the
said was,
Band-Aid brigade.
Or
I think what
or a
I said was,
combination
ow. So I'll just part this off. And I forgot where I was going with that.
Sorry.
It's all right. It's your fault, Dane.
Yeah, it's all right. You know, everybody else blames me for it, so why not? Hey, Matt, before you trim that all the way off, can you show your parting tool?
Yeah.
Again.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's just a standard Benjamin Best parting tool. Okay. It cost me $15 on Amazon. And because it was so inexpensive, I wanted to try this grind. Okay. So all it is just one side is slightly lower than the other side. It's just not completely flat across the top. And that angle is 15 degrees on this tool. And I like it so much that I haven't gone in the grinder since. I just hone it. I just use the honing card on it. So I'm worried that about changing the grind on it. But what it does is it gives you a point, like one side is pointed, and it lets me undercut better for these sorts of things when I'm undercutting things. And I use it on the bottoms of platters or plates or goblets or anything that requires undercutting. So
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Yeah, and I have standard parting tools, and I use them happily for all the usual things. But it's just, I saw somebody had this once, and I was like, that's a great idea. I got to try that. And so I did. And I'm, like the first time I ground it, it was too steep, and it was just, I was catching, and it was like, this isn't working. So I changed the grind. But because the tool was so inexpensive, I felt like I could happily just mess with the grind until I got it where I wanted it. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So, and I do that with used tools too. Tools you buy at a sale or when
Flea market.
Yeah. Although I haven't found any actual turning tools at a flea market.
Secondhand
Just
store.
gonna ask where you go for a flea market that has turning tools. That would be unusual, I would think.
You look for
Blinds,
people getting out of turning.
saws, yeah.
Believe it
So-
or not, when I was in France, I went to a flea market and I actually did find some turning tools.
Wow.
Incredible.
So let me find my handy dandy little, I got a lot of stuff floating around in here. I don't know where my little 1/4-inch wrench went. There it is. So still got some more to take off. Watch it. That's going to end up in the shavings. So, and you can sort of use this like that as a gauge.
Perfect fit.
Well, I had to do a little work. Now I don't have on that little tool. It's not, neither of the ends are sharpened. I know that some people have sharpened them a little bit.
Yeah, I sharpened mine. Get it close to the size and then just use the tool to cut it the rest of the way.
Yep.
Well, I sharpen mine and use it when I do my birdhouses.
Yep.
Cool. So, and there's my ribbon finial, and clearly I've got some cleaning up to do on the inside here.
It looks great from our perspective.
little bit of carving, but that's how those are made.
Absolutely great.
That's beautiful.
Very
So
nice.
That's a great idea.
Tomorrow.
Yeah, and you get right, and you get people looking at them, and they're like, "How'd you make that?" And then it's like, it's good fun.
Mhm.
Yes.
I gotta do that.
You tell them you spent hours
Well
on
done, Matt.
marching.
Adds $100 to the piece.
Right? Yeah. If I tell you, I'll have to tell you.
So and all
demo,
that.
Matt.
Thank you very much. And all that stuff that I did to the finial on that bowl lid. This was all experimental. I mean, I'm, all of that. You can't really see it all that well. Let's go back to this camera. So this chameleon dust is so fun. It changes color as you shift. I love it. It's just great fun, and it adds so much to the piece. So I'm absolutely delighted with how that turned out, and it was an experiment.
It's great.
So, any other questions I can answer on that?
How about a demo on how to do some of the coloring, like the dust and stuff?
Okay, well, the dust is pretty simple. You treat it like it's gold foil, and you use what they call sizing, which is a sort of a glue.
Oh, so
And
it's like a gold leafing type stuff?
Yeah, gold leaf. That's the word I was looking for. You treat it like it's gold leaf, and you basically put the sizing on, which is a thin glue, and you give it 30 minutes until it starts to get tacky, and then you just brush the dust on.
Okay.
And that's what I did with that. Now there are, when you start doing deep research, you find out that there are people who are doing things like airbrushing the dust, and they're mixing it with a medium, an airbrush medium. And I tried that, but I didn't get it quite right, and the medium never dried. So I suspect that what you need to do is to use it with the sizing and the medium to get it where you want it. But I'm not exactly sure. It's for future reference.
Got it. Thanks, Matt.
You're very welcome. Any other questions?
Matt,
Hey,
Matt, could you make that thinner? Instead of using 3/4 inch tape, could you use 1/2 inch or 1/4 inch to
Absolutely.
create a thinner spiral?
Yeah, and this one here, I did just by eye. I didn't use any tape, and you can see how thin that is. You can carve any shape you want in there. You can make that a real tight spiral if you want. So
Would it be possible to make 2 spirals the way you're doing it? Make a tandem pair?
you could. You absolutely could. As a matter of fact, my first time I made one of these and posted, I don't know, a month or so ago, maybe 2 months ago. One of my Facebook friends said something along the lines. I don't know if he's a customer or not yet. He said, "I'd really like a holder made that with that as the stem." So I haven't got to the point where I figured out how to do that yet, but maybe doing 2 spirals is it would make for a more effective way to do that.
You know how you cut the tenon with that wrench? I do that too, and it works real well, except for, sometimes the end, or maybe even up close to the body where you undercut it, doesn't quite get the roundness that you need. And if you use a plug cutter, it'll come back and straighten all that up, even down very close, all the way into the undercut you have.
Well, that's one of the beauties of using a tool like this, is it might not get that shoulder exactly the way you want it to with the wrench, but then you can go in with this and clean it up.
Sure.
Yep. So there's a couple ways of doing that. Anything else? Yes.
Yeah, I have a question. So, well, actually a comment. So, on your barrel sander that you use?
Yes.
Okay. So what I use is I've made a flappy paddle out of 400 grit sandpaper. Basically, I take 1.5 inches. Yes. So you take 1.5 inches piece of square pieces. I use 6, 400 grit, poke a hole in them. And I actually take the screw out of the end of those, put it through the paper, and then it gives you like a flappy paddle that you can go in and out of areas. And, even when you're detailing stuff and banging, you're making just to basically smooth out anything that's rough.
Sure. Yeah, they're great for that. And one of the reasons why I really like these things, and a flat pad works the same too, is it's got this layer of foam in here between the aluminum cylinder and the sandpaper, so it flexes around contours and stuff. You really, it doesn't leave any sharp corners or sharp edges or things. So that's a great. I really love those. I use them all the time. So thanks very much, everyone. I see all the comments in here. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, Matt, I was gonna say, you're a really good presenter, man.
Thank you, Kelly.
You really are.
Yeah, you are good.
No, it was very nice, Matt. Real nice.
Very good. Thank you.
It's all the opportunities that Eddie and Dane and everybody else, the team at Worldwide Woodturners have allowed me, to keep in practice. It really helps. So, getting in front of crowds and doing this and everybody being supportive is very, very helpful.
Yes, indeed. Yes,
You did a good job.
Anything else I can answer?
We'll have him lined up again later on down the road here.
Okay, maybe all these bugs flying around here. You'd think that turning cedar in the shop would shut down the insects, but apparently not.
Maybe
Snow's
that's why
on
they're
its way,
moving
buddy.
out.
Yeah, give me a month or two. Like it was 87 today here, and by Saturday night it's going to be 38. So
That'll take care of those bugs.
I was about to kid you about it being cold, but
yeah, that's it. One of the you've seen those memes, right? The reason why I live where the air freezes my face is because it kills all the bugs.
Yeah.
All right, thanks, Matt. All right,
Good job,
my pleasure. Thank you. Hey, Eddie, can I skip in here a second? I spent all this time on this document and I forgot all about it in the demo. Can I quickly go through the slides? It's only 4 pages.
Sure.
I think
all right. So am I spotlighted? Okay.
Yes,
So
sir.
this is the document. All right. And basically it outlines the steps. Okay. So you put a tenon, make it round, drill it out, measure, bring up a cone, turn the barrel flat, part it off, put the tape on, and cut it. And then the last page, I've got the same notes that I talked about measuring, and don't use a small branch with the center in the pith because you'll screw up the pith or screw up the tenon. And then I detailed the carving tools that I used, the ones I showed tonight. I do have other carving tools that I use, and I don't know if that's of use to you guys, but those Dremel tools I used tonight, they work really well on that. So
Matt, will that be available to us on our website?
Yeah, I've already sent that presentation to Dave.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
So I sent it to him this afternoon. So if it's not on the website, it will be shortly.
I'll have it up by tomorrow.
Okay.
Well, thanks, Dave.
Thanks, Dave. Much appreciated.
Matt, what was your decision? Was it easier on the lathe or off the lathe to cut those sections out?
I actually liked doing it on the lathe. That went real smooth. And you don't need the second hand to hold things. You know what I mean? The lathe is already holding it. So it was a little wobbly there. So I had to use my fingers to support it, but I thought it went very, very smoothly. And I like being able to just spin it on the lathe too. That was real useful. So that's how I'm going to do it from now on.
Yeah, it looked like a good way. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm glad I tried that tonight. So I like pushing my demos, man.
Might as well.
When you're carving that, have you thought of inserting a 1/2-inch dowel in that hole to stabilize it while you're doing the carving?
Yes, I have. And in all fairness, the original inspiration video for me from my club member Phil Stevens, when he was cutting this on his scroll saw, that's exactly what he did. He put he put a dowel in there to stabilize the ribbon while he was cutting it.
I'm thinking to eliminate vibration.
In all honesty, I was hardly getting any vibration, and the vibration was probably due to the fact that I had a 1/2-inch tenon on it at this point. You know what I mean? So it was pretty thin, and I'm at 2 mil on the thickness. It's pretty thin. So let's see if I could got a stack of these things over here. Find the one I did tonight. So there it is. So, I mean, it's, you know, it's pretty thin, you
Yeah, it
know,
is.
so it's, you know, and I was sitting down here on this tenon and it wasn't all the way down, but it was close. So, you know, this may be one of the thinnest ones I've turned so far. So I'll take it.
I wondered as well, Matt, could it have helped you with the vibration issues when you're cutting the ribbon out if you
Did we lose him?
I don't know what happened. But anyway, I was just thinking I wonder if it would help if you drilled a couple of holes there at the bottom before you started cut out the sides.
It might. It might. I mean, on this one here, let me switch over here. Not there. Here. Let me go to this view here. If you can see this, don't know if this is going to show, but I actually, when I cut through the bottom of this, I'm actually a little below the bottom of my hole here. So I realistically have to come in here with carving tools and clean this up. And you can see how thick this got here all of a sudden, right there. So, you know, maybe holes would have better guided me. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And it might have worked out better. Sorry, it might have worked out better if I'd actually, instead of cutting down at my line, if I'd given it like 1/4 of an inch and cut in 1/4 inch above my line. It probably would have been a better thing. So there's some fuel for thought, for future thought. So
I know when I've done barley twist candlesticks, and when I do the holes, you know, to line out the twist, and then I use a rotary cutter, I always find that the holes are very grabby on the cutter. And so on something thicker you can get away with, I would say something on, you know, with smaller dimension wood there, it's going to be grabby and you may run the risk of it grabbing and breaking, Matt.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. I mean, this is pretty thin, you know, and
right.
You know, maybe on a drill press with a, you know, with a holder, with a, you know, a V holder, like I was showing earlier, you know, maybe that would be smart to, you know, to do, you know, on the drill press. And that's where I use these a lot. I use them on the bandsaw and on the drill press. You know, you could keep it very stable in a holder like this and just very precisely drill. I tend to be a little strong when I'm drilling things, you know, and I need to be more careful. And on something like this, I would. But yeah, I'd be worried about that, about going through. But
yeah, my only thought was from doing yarn bowls, and it works best for me if I drill that hole first, and then I cut out from that hole, coming back up to my rim with the J slot.
Yep,
that was my thought.
That's how I do it too.
Yeah.
And part of that is it gives you an anchor for the beginning of the cut. Maybe that would work here, have, you know, a hole at the bottom. You know?
Yeah, I don't know. It'd be something to experiment with, wouldn't it?
It would.
You can also do your spiral and cut them with a rasp.
Yes.
I've got if you want to highlight me for a minute, I've got a couple here I can show.
Yeah, hold on.
Working on. I got it. I think. There you
go. Okay.
Oh.
So they were both just I just turned like a triangular shape and then used a hand rasp to do them this way.
Yep, and that was like the original way to do barley twists. That's how like Stuart Mortimer was doing them and stuff. Yeah.
Right. Okay, when you extend it out like this, it's called a pig's tail. If you keep it straight like that, try not to let the tip break.
Right.
Did you use dye on the one and you went from dark to yellow? blue, pink, yellow?
This
Did you-
one was painted. It was originally a piece of cherry, and this one, it was airbrushed. It went from a black through red through orange and yellow coming
Nice.
up.
Nice.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thanks, Ruby.
Thanks,
back
Ruby.
to the group.
Hey, Matt. Hey,
Yes.
Matt, what do you do with the point from your drill there in the bottom of the hole? How do you treat that?
I get grinding tools out, and I use a sphere cutter. I use stump cutters a lot. I really like those. I get them from MDI wood carvers.
Mhm.
I use stump cutters to do a lot of the carving I do, and so I just get my carving tools out and carve it out. You could do it with a saber tooth burr, and then clean it up with sanding. But I basically smooth it out.
Or just don't go so deep where you see it.
Yeah, and I mean, it's not that big a deal. We're not talking a lot of space here. Let me switch over here and go back to this. So this one here is a finished one. Oh, you can't see it because it's washing out. Let me try this other camera here and see if it's better.
Actually, if you hold it back a little, we can
Yeah,
see it better, I think.
See, the center's further in there.
Yeah.
Wrong
Down
direction.
and
There
to
we
your
go.
There
right.
you go.
There.
So basically all I did is I just basically smoothed it out to the edges from the center. So, I mean, it looks real clean. And then I can go in there, with sand, I do sanding. This is a Dixie Biggs trick. I sand small carvings with a diamond burr, running at low speed. You can use them to sand things with. So you carve it till you get to your shape, and then you go into it with a diamond burr and just sand it out. So turns out real good. So
Outstanding.
Good
Thanks,
job.
Matt.
my
Any
pleasure.
other questions, folks?
No, that was very enjoyable, Matt. Very enjoyable.
Well, thank you.
Really?
I'm looking forward to seeing some from y'all.
A minute ago, Scott said, can you do that with more than one spiral? Sure. What we just saw from Matt was an idea of how to make this work. Play with it. Play with it. Yes, I saw several fingers coming up and twisting it. And it gives you a lot of play with. And if somebody said, hey, can you cut that with a jigsaw or a scroll saw, whatever? Yeah, you could make do because, I'm an old ammo troop. We could do anything with anything, or everything with anything. But I really do like my Fordham tool. And if I'd done that boring with and I'm the kind of guy that would modify my forcing a bit to have the right bit and all that to drill it out and get it slick, I would have sat there and carved out those pieces and decorated them out. And then as slowly as I could, I would have taped them back up because it's like a palette. It gives you something to play with. And if you start playing with those colors, can you imagine if those fingers were not all of the same color, that metallic changed? So if you had it as a lid on a box on a lid and twist it, let your mind play a little bit, let it twist a little bit. See what Matt did? Matt just put a little bit of fuel on your fire. It's up to you to stoke it, play around with it. Now, here's the challenge. Can we see some of your work that does this? Can we see what you can do that you can twist this around where you can take an idea, a concept, a theory, a base, and expand it, bringing it to something that we can all use and work with? And it's a challenge. It really is. We've done this many times before, and we've seen it happen. We've had folks come and do something, something, then a week later, Billy Bert's awful for this. A week later, pow! All of a sudden, he's got an idea with 3-4 different changes on it, And it's just because he took what we do on Worldwide Woodturners and he took his brain food and said, I can play with this a little bitty bit, but what if? And there you go. What if? Doug Miller said, I like to use that wrench when I do my tenons. Well, you know, Doug, you can modify that wrench with an angled cut on it to do that secret slide in cut to where you're not rubbing on it. Think about it, look at it, and say, okay, it's my tool. I'm driving the bus. This does the cutting, that does the following. This one's important and that one's not. You know, think about how it cuts. If you get one day, you will realize that if you just look at your tools and figure how they slice, how they cut, and take it all the way to that baseline. Don't go looking at what the manufacturer says. You know, and remember, I use the manufacturer tools. You can't tell everybody the tool can do. It's a liability thing. There's an input liability thing. My lawyer would kill me if I told people about this. It was just one of these things where there are things they can do. Take it and play with it. In your shop, be safe with it. Take it and play with it, but put it together and say, okay, I can make this slice and do this. Do I need that? And if tools that you make in your shop works great, it does wonders. And it saves you a lot of time and effort. And we'd like to see those ideas. We asked earlier, we asked Grandpa to tell us how he fixed that urn that he turned when he came back, because see, he came up with a way. He said he got lucky when he peeled it off to unbind it. And that got folks into thinking about, well, you know what? If you did this, you might not have that problem. So we look for that input. One of our guys said, a little bit of talcum powder before you put it together. I used to do a lot of threading, and talcum powder was my number one thing before I put parts together when I was threading, because just a slight bit off, just a slight raise in hand cut threads, and you don't see those raises and grooves until you put them together. And when you put them together, your gusto wants to put them in, and then you don't realize you've done that. Too much muscle. And then you say, oh, you know, that's one of those, oh, darn, yeah. And you use an adverb and what is an adverb or an adjective? Matt, Dane, which one is it, a good one?
Do what?
Is it an adverb or an adjective that we would use?
I would use a combination of the two.
Oh, combination of them.
Yes, yes.
Yeah,
They're both fitting.
You go, holy, you know, and but that you know, if you think about it a little bit more, what Safety Sue say? Before you get started, think it through. You know, this one we saw this demo tonight is really good idea. Think about this one all the way through. You want to have a little fun? Get a toilet paper tube or a paper towel tube, okay? And carve out the flute that you want to turn like Matt Harber did tonight. Just, yeah, that's it. Just get the tube and draw it out. Number one, you'll learn how to run that tape around, and you'll learn how to get that spacing right, because it's how you lay it in there. You get that spacing right. You'll learn how much twist to put on it and such, and you practice on something that you are not really worried about crushing and breaking. And you'll get that in, and then you can practice on it. And guess what? You can throw the paper tube away. You don't have any real investment in it, but you've practiced a little bit and got it started. So everything we're doing here tonight, everything we do each week for a demonstration comes from you, our membership. It's free. We don't pay for these demonstrations because we're a bunch of friends. And I always say it, and it's true. We're sitting on a tailgate out in the parking lot telling stories about wood turning, and I love it. And I think we get along pretty good. In fact, we tell some real whoppers sometimes. Okay, if we can help you in any way whatsoever, let us know. We're going to do more galleries this evening. If you got something to show, go to the chat, say, I have something to show. Make sure your name's in there. And then Dan will introduce you. When he introduces you, start to, if he says, hi, I'm Carl. I got something to show. Start talking, because he's got to look through a board of about 100 people and find your little block, yellow blocking, so he can pick you out. And then we'll go right to you. If you got a question, same way, I have a question, say it. It's wide open, folks. It's your
Hey,